Welcome back to the review realm. Once again, we have an album review for you. If you are new to the show, please hit the like button on this, subscribe to the review realm. It really helps us out when we do album reviews like this. And as always, joining me as part of the review realm, the other half of these album reviews, Sam, the SLB himself.
Hey guys, we're continuing the theme of bands that either I or John have both never really listened to, and lucky for you, this is a first for me. So looking forward to go into this one.
Yes, this is a first, surprisingly, for Sam here. I am very familiar with this band. I love this band. I think they're very underrated. They've been around for a really long time. Of course, we are talking about. I didn't know it was this many albums, but I wasn't really all that surprised either. Holy crap! This is Sevendust with their new album, their 15th album. Holy jeez, one.
Just one. Yeah. So as John was saying, I'm not too familiar with this band, and after the at the Gates review, I had to go back and revisit. There are actually some songs that sounded familiar. Black was the first one I came across.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to a couple of different songs. They all sounded familiar. Without plugging it, uh, in my head, when I heard Black, I'm like, what WWE pay per view from the late 90s, early 2000s was this song used for? Guess not. That's all that could come to mind, but I do have a better understanding on the band in general. Long story short, I enjoyed what I heard.
I'm trying to think of. I don't. It wasn't Black. I think it might have been. It was Unforgiven in somewhere in the 2000s, and it was Enemy. I think
Okay.
off of Seasons, I
Okay.
believe it that lines up. So no, that you're definitely right there. That this band has definitely crossed over into the wrestling world. I think they did a cover of Chris Jericho's theme at one point as well too. But yeah, no, this band has been around a really really long time, and I think they're extremely underrated in the scene. They don't stop. They just keep cranking out albums. It seems it's only been a few years since the last album, Truth Killer. However, all right. So with diving right into one here, I will say the albums have kind of gotten stale for me. The last few, I
Hmm.
would say, probably since All I See Is War was probably the last, I think, really solid one all the way through, where after that, it's really been back and forth with me. One is one of those albums where I think it really goes back and forth with me.
I could see that. Again, going back to listening to their older stuff, it still sounds they still sound pretty consistent from at least listening to the beginning to their most recent stuff, and that's something I got to give them because there's a lot of bands out there they hit like what do you want to say almost 30 years into the career, and you're like, all right, like you're consistent, or you don't sound the same, or you sound the same, and just blah. But there were some takeaways on this album.
Yeah, as far as singles, I think Construct was probably my favorite one. I think that one was actually probably one of the best songs on the album too. Whereas other singles like, Is This the Real You? I like parts of it, but it still feels kind of stale to me. And the same thing with Unbreakable was another one where I thought, yeah, some of these songs are not really doing it for me. What did you think of the singles?
Um, I honestly didn't listen to the singles. I just listened to the album. I think the first one I did hear was Unbreakable, and I enjoyed it. I was like, all right, cool. This is kind of that I don't know, new metal, late '90s post grunge sound. All right, I can get behind this. Um, I did enjoy Is This the Real You? I enjoyed Blood Price.
Actually, Threshold was a good single too. I'll give them that.
Yeah, Threshold was.
Yeah.
There were a couple of songs I felt like they were getting like stale, and that's something that's odd, especially with this album only being 40 minutes long.
Yeah, it was a back and forth with this album. I thought the title track was decent, and then as the album goes on, I like parts of it, but you get to songs like We Won, I'm like, and then Bright Side was another one where I felt it was a little too generic for me. There are a lot of points on this album where, as consistent as they are and as how good of a band they can be, there's points where I feel like they don't have it anymore, and I feel like they should take a little break.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with that. Um, but again, like for my, I would say my first listen of this band, I enjoyed it, and I definitely want to go back and revisit some of their older albums.
Like there's points on the album where it's a little bit better, like the drop. I thought Blood. I think you mentioned Blood Price, which was interesting. It's interesting to hear Clint Lowry do some of his vocals. That doesn't happen a
Hmm.
lot. So the main vocalist you'll hear is LaJawn Witherspoon,
Yeah.
and you'll hear Morgan Rose on the drums does a little bit of vocals.
Who, who now we're having this conversation. Who there's one of these songs on here where it started giving me Trivium vibes because obviously you had the lead singer singing and then he had whoever was screaming. And I'm like, is this Trivium? Is that Matt Heafy? Like it sounded like it,
Pro-
pretty close.
Probably Blood Price. That's where I made the note that it was interesting to hear Clint include some of his vocals. Like I said, that doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I thought there was one at the beginning of the album. I'd have to go back and listen, but
and they usually tend to end their albums this way with misdirection. I thought that was one of the more interesting songs on the album too. Like I said, it's really a back and forth here. It's not super long, 10 songs, 40 minutes, and the production it sounds decent at least.
yeah, something that like I would definitely give this one another listen. They do sound consistent from their older stuff, which interests me into hearing their great stuff. If this is what I enjoyed from what you would say is like a an album on par, I'd be curious to hear them on an album you would say is above par.
You gotta go back. You gotta listen to Animosity.
Noted.
That is their best album. That album is a masterpiece in my eyes. I will say.
All right.
In comparison to that, it's definitely not the same. Um, like it's the band maintains their consistency, but I feel like they need like to be refreshed a little bit. I think there's no shame in taking a break and like um coming back to it at some point.
Yeah, just get a refresher, get a breather in, and just come back and do some more writing later, or do some writing while you're on the side while you're
Yeah. I
relaxing.
still respect the hell out of this band. Whenever I've seen them, open for somebody or one headline show that I saw them in, I'm happy that they're still going. But I feel like I'm getting less and less excited about material that they're putting out because it's not really standing out as much as it could.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of bands like that where you hit. Not every band is going to do this, but I feel like when you start hitting the 30-year mark, there are some bands out there that's like, all right. I'll say this about classic rock bands all the time. It's like, all right, you're going to put out a new album, then you got a few of the original members. The music's not memorable. It sounds like you, but you're like, all right, like, are we just making music to make music, or is there some inspiration on this?
Right. That's kind of what I feel here. It feels like music for the sake of music, where I think it could be more than that. But overall, yeah, that's pretty much our thoughts on one, the new album from Sevendust. Please let us know in the comments below how either of us are wrong, what you think of the album, Sevendust legacy, and everything. Thanks for joining us, and as always, do not forget to join the Bedlam.